Fresh off our first ever RV trip, we learned a ton of lessons, but right now we've got our 5 biggest lessons learned here on the RV Noobs. Come along for the ride, let's go. What's up everyone? Welcome to the RV Noobs channel. I am, Mr. Noobs. Appreciate everybody who is checking in with us here. We've got a really awesome video for you. This episode is going to be all about the lessons that we learned in our first ever RV trip. If we gave you all of the lessons we learned, it would be like one of those Walgreens receipts. You know, you go in, you buy like one item and you get a receipt that's like 3 feet long. So we narrowed it down to the 5 biggest lessons learned. Now, before we get to those, we appreciate everybody who is new to the channel. If you are new, this is your first time checking us out, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, share this video, and comment, because the comments have been what's sustained us these first few episodes. The comments have been amazing. So many and so many tips and hacks, and we appreciate them so much. If you are coming back to the channel, you are already subscribed, we really appreciate that so much, but make sure you hit that like button and of course share it and comment. If you didn't get a chance to check out our previous video, which was documenting our first ever RV trip, there's a link right here that you can click or go in the description, and there is a link in there as well. The number 5 biggest lesson that we learned on this trip has to be maybe something that happened a little bit before that, but it has to do with the reservation system for campgrounds. Now, people who are veterans of this lifestyle are probably very understanding of what it takes to reserve at a campground, but whether it's a state park, a national park, a KOA, a Jellystone, or any private park, everyone has their own reservation system. And it's like a minefield that you have to work your way through to try and figure it out. What's the best way to get a reservation? Some you have to do it a year in advance, or maybe 6 months or 3 months, and they all have their own sort of way of doing their reservation system, and we're trying to figure that part out. But the biggest lesson that we learned is you have to plan way ahead. You can't just sort of show up onto a website and say, hey, I want to reserve something for July 4th weekend in May. Or like we did, we had friends invite us to the Shenandoah Valley for Memorial Day weekend. So we go online to see if there's any reservation system. I mean, come on. I know some of you all are probably laughing at us right now for even thinking it would be a possibility. I think when I clicked the mouse, I heard the computer laughing, because it's not possible to get something. You have to do it so far in advance. So maybe the lesson is that you really have to plan your trips well in advance in order to get to places that you really want to go. So we definitely learned that lesson, that the reservation system is something that you have to get experienced with. And if you have some hacks and some tips and tricks for us, make sure that you leave a comment and let us know something that you use that helps you get to your favorite spots on your favorite dates. The number 4 biggest lesson that we learned, it was a surprise to us that it seems like there are a lot of people who actually live in these campgrounds. We just weren't expecting that, right? We just thought that campgrounds were for vacationers, but as soon as we pulled in, you could just sort of tell that there are people who live there almost full time. And it makes a lot of sense. Now, of course, we went to the Capitol KOA campground just outside of Washington, D.C. And we saw, as we were kind of sitting around and got set up, and it just seemed like, oh my gosh, these people live here. They live here, live here, live here. Maybe 75% is an educated guess of how many people actually live in these campgrounds. It seems like a no-brainer. That seems so smart to us as we got to talking about it. Now, maybe it is unique to this campground, because this campground is just outside of Washington, D.C. And look, we've lived in this area, in the Washington, D.C. area, for the better part of 15 years. So we understand the cost of living in this area. I work in Washington, D.C. We don't live in Washington, D.C. We live north and east of Baltimore. So my commute to work, wait for it, is 2 hours. Wait for it again, each way. So it's a 4-hour commute for me. But we found that that was the best way because the place that we wanted to live to get what we thought was a good value for us, you have to live that far out of Washington, D.C. So the people that we see there, you know, Washington, D.C. is a transient city. People come in to work for the government, the federal government, for the military as contractors, as active duty, all of that. It makes a ton of sense. We saw a couple of military families there. If you probably pay 25% of what it would cost you to live just outside the city. And free electricity, free water, all of that. It makes a ton of sense. And we were like, dang, we should have thought of that when we were active duty. But it was just really a surprise to us that so many people actually live on these campgrounds. Number 3, a deal breaker for us as we continue to look for a trailer or a Class C, whatever it may be. A deal breaker for us, as it turns out that we learned a lesson, we have to have a north-south bed. The particular camper that we had on this trip was an east-west bed. I don't get people who have east-west beds. That's an absolute deal breaker. As we go through and we do all this research, and if we get a floor plan that says it's an east-west bed, we're out. We're not doing that. And there's 2 really good reasons, right? One is when you make up the bed, and we like to make our bed every time, every morning, but even if you're just doing it for the first time, how do you make a bed when you're standing or crawling on the bed? How do you do that? I'm sure there are some hacks out there that show you how to do it, but the only thing I can think of is, remember that Mission Impossible when Tom Cruise just hovered over the top of the floor without touching it? That's the only way I think you can make the bed. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's one reason, and that by itself would be a deal breaker. But the other reason is, who's ever sleeping on the inside, to get out, they have to crawl over the other person. And look, I'm getting old. I got a tiny bladder. I got to get up 2, 3, 4 times a night, and I got to climb over. That was not fun. Absolute deal breaker. We must have a north-south bed in whatever camper we decide to get. The number 2 lesson we learned on this particular trip, and if you happen to see it, we put out a short about it because we didn't know. But the question is, why don't you just leave the valve open while you're using it, since you're connected, so that everything will drain out as needed in real time? We got a lot of responses and a lot of people making fun of us, and rightly so. We didn't know, but it makes total sense. It's not like a sewer at home where it's just a pipe that goes consistently. In the RV, you got a tank. And if that water is not flowing, that waste is not flowing, it sits in a tank. And if it sits there and there's no liquid, then you're gonna build a pyramid, I think somebody called it, which makes a lot of sense. But we learned. We didn't know. Now we know, of course. You have to flush it afterwards. You have to flush the black water, the black tank out, use the chemicals, all that good stuff, so you don't build a pyramid. Makes a whole lot of sense. We just didn't know it at the time. We know it now. But that was the number 2 lesson we learned. Let's get to the biggest lesson learned. Our number 1 lesson learned on our first ever RV trip is the RV life is awesome. I mean, we had so much fun on this particular trip. And look, it was an easy trip. We'll totally admit that it was an easy trip. It was 3 days, a Wednesday to Friday in the middle of the week. It was close by. It was a rented trailer. It was a short stay. The weather was awesome. But man, we had so much fun. And in having so much fun, guess what? We're hooked. We're hooked on the RV life, and we can't wait to continue on this path, because what we've done in the 3 days that we've been RV camping in our entire life, we have discovered 1/1,000,000th of what there is to discover in the RV life. And man, we just can't wait to be able to discover more. And I'll be totally honest with you, we were talking about this, Mrs. Noobs and I. It's gonna be hard to not pull a trigger on our own RV before the fall, which was our plan all along. Our plan was to wait until the fall when they have, I think it's called the world's largest RV show in Hershey, Pennsylvania in the fall in September. Hershey's an hour and a half from here. So our whole plan was to find what we want and then hopefully get the best deal at that RV show. But what are we gonna do all summer? What are we gonna do all summer? We just went on that camping trip. It was like a week ago. And we sat this weekend talking like, man, wish we were out in an RV this weekend. And are we gonna do that weekend after weekend after weekend all summer? Sure, we can totally rent another and get to a campground and all that, but yeah, we are totally hooked on the RV lifestyle. That's our #1 lesson learned, that it was all that we had hoped it would be, and we can't wait to discover more. Thanks for checking out this video. We appreciate everybody. Give us a whole bunch more tips and tricks and hacks and all that. If you're still here, I appreciate you. Make sure you hit that like button. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe, share, turn on notifications so you know when we put out more exciting videos. Let us know if there's something that, as a new person, that we should be studying and we should be researching or we need to know. And leave that in the comment section. We appreciate everybody, again, once again, who has been watching. And if you are a subscriber, if you are already a subscriber, make sure you hit that like button, comment, all that good stuff. We'll see you on down the road. Come along for the ride. It's gonna be so much fun.